flames of understanding. By the time I stepped outside, the leaves shimmered with shades of crimson and gold. The crisp air of November filled my lungs, invigorating me in a way I hadn't felt for days. Jules breathed in the cool freshness and closed her eyes, allowing the autumn breeze to wash over her. She felt a flicker of hope amidst the swirling emotions that had consumed her for far too long. "Someone's finally out in the world," said Ethan, his tone laced with concern. "Did you finally decide to rejoin us?" Jules wrapped her scarf tighter around herself, offering a faint smile. She drifted back into the confines of their cozy cottage, her gaze finding the flickering flames in the small fireplace they had set up. Ethan caught the reflection in her eyes, an unsettling flicker that seemed to mirror the dwindling fire. "Jules," Ethan reached for her arm, but she recoiled, the frustration boiling just beneath the surface. "Please just let me be," Jules replied, her voice trembling. "I'm tired of explaining. You won't ever really understand what I'm going through." In the blink of an eye, Ethan withdrew, storming back to his room, leaving only silence behind. Time dripped away like the autumn leaves from the trees. After several hours, Ethan tapped gently on Jules's door, his stomach knotted with anxiety. When he received no answer, concern crept in. "Seriously," he muttered to himself. "You're locking yourself in again. Is this how it's going to be?" He stepped away from the door, the weight of her isolation pressing down on him. "You can't just shut everyone out. Don't you have a life?" When Jules finally opened the door, her expression was hollow. Ethan felt his anger bubble up. "You think you can just ignore everyone who cares about you? Get it together, Jules. Maybe you should try understanding me before you come barging into my world." Jules shot back, bitterness dancing in her eyes. Ethan slammed his hand against the wall in frustration. His thoughts churned as he retreated to his own room, the solitude becoming a suffocating blanket. What is it with her, he thought. Everyone gets sad. Why can't she just snap out of it? But guilt gnawed at his insides, and doubt seeped in. Perhaps, he mused, I shouldn't be so quick to judge. After all, she's my best friend. I should be better than this. He tossed himself onto the bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling helpless. What do I do? The following day, Ethan ventured into the nearby town for supplies. He relished the routine, the crispness of the autumn air filling him with clarity. The familiar sights and sounds of the town were comforting. He picked up a few essentials and some pastries from the quaint bakery. He was lost in thought when he nearly collided with his old friend, Meyer. "Ethan," she blinked with surprise. "Meyer? What brings you back here?" he asked, his mood brightening at the sight of her. "I could ask you the same question." Meyer replied, her expression softening. "Last I heard, you moved out into the woods." "Yeah, I'm living with a friend in a cabin," he explained, beaming a little at the mention of Jules. "How's she doing?" Meyer asked, curiosity in her eyes. Ethan hesitated, his shoulders slumping with the weight of his worries. "Well, it's complicated. She's been pretty withdrawn lately, claiming she has depression, but I think she's just trying to get attention." Meyer's face turned serious as she scolded him softly. "Ethan, that's not fair. You were the same way with me years ago. You have to understand mental health is real." A mix of shock and shame washed over him. "What do you mean? You dismissed what I was going through, and now you're doing it again," she responded, shaking her head. "It's not just sadness, it's an illness. You have to do better." As Meyer walked away, her words echoed in Ethan's mind, shaking him to his core. He returned to the cabin, a heavy quiet settling in. He sat in the driveway, lost in thought until a familiar voice jolted him from his reverie. "Ethan, why are you sitting out there? It's cold." Jules called from the door, her smile faint yet hopeful. He rushed out of the truck and enveloped her in an embrace, warmth flooding between them. I'm so sorry, Jules. I really messed up. I didn't comprehend what you were dealing with. I should have been more supportive. Jules pulled back to meet his gaze. Thank you for saying that. I didn't mean to shut you out, I just felt so lost. Ethan nodded, determination filling him. I'll be here for you, no matter what. We'll face this together. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with vibrant colors, they embraced in a moment of mutual understanding, their hearts beginning to heal as they navigated the complexities of their lives hand in hand. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with vibrant colors, Ethan and Jules stood in the cool evening air, their hearts synchronizing as they embraced in a moment of mutual understanding. Ethan withdrew to look into Jules's eyes, which were now alive with a flicker of hope. Do you think we can really navigate this together? Jules asked quietly, her vulnerability laid bare in the twilight. Ethan smiled softly, reassuringly. I know we can. It's just going to take time and patience for both of us. You don't have to face this alone anymore. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, as if a dam had broken, the words and emotions tumbling forth. They shared small bits of their lives that had gone unsaid. Jules talked about her struggles, the overwhelming weight of feeling inadequate and lost, while Ethan opened up about his own fears of inadequacy and misunderstanding. It was a dance of honesty, a tentative step forward. Can we start with something simple? Ethan proposed. Like dinner. I bet I can cook better than you. Jules laughed, the sound pleasant and melodic, chasing away some of the lingering shadows. You're on. But just so you know, I make a mean pasta. As they moved into the cabin together, the warmth inside wrapped around them like a comforting blanket. Jules watched as Ethan rummaged through the kitchen. His animated search for pots and pans was infectious, and she found herself smiling, a lightness filling her chest she thought she'd lost. I don't know what you're making, but I'm already impressed, she teased. Just you wait. I'm a culinary wizard, he boasted, though the twinkle in his eye betrayed his playful overconfidence. As they cooked side by side, a sense of normalcy returned. They shared recipes and laughed over the clinking of utensils. Jules began to feel more like herself, the burdens she carried starting to loosen their grip. The aroma of garlic and herbs filled the air, a tangible reminder of the comfort that came from camaraderie. Can I ask you something? Ethan said, slicing vegetables with an earnest look on his face, the knife moving rhythmically on the cutting board. Anything, Jules replied, her heart rate steadied by his presence. Back when we were at school together, I felt like I could never quite reach you, even when we were supposed to be close. What was it that made you draw away? Jules paused, the vulnerability of the question sinking in. She took a breath, gathering her thoughts. I was scared, she admitted. I kept thinking I had to put on a mask to fit in. I thought if people saw how I really felt, they'd walk away. So, I locked it all inside. Ethan's brow furrowed. I know what that's like. I felt the same way. It's easier to hide than to be open, right? But it just leaves you feeling alone. Exactly, she nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. But I don't want to feel that way anymore. Not with you. His hand brushed against hers on the counter, the warmth of connection igniting a spark of comfort. We can learn together, you know. How to be there for each other. I want us both to be better. As they finished cooking, they set the table together. Light from the small candles flickered, casting gentle shadows across the walls. They exchanged stories over dinner, small, genuine moments where laughter bubbled up and old fears began to dissolve into small doses of happiness. You know, Ethan said between bites, I'm really proud of you for opening up today. It's a big step. Jules felt a rush of warmth at his words. I never thought I'd get here. It took me a while to realize that I need someone like you, a friend who cares. They finished their meal as the stars began to twinkle outside, the night deepening around them. It felt as if a new chapter was beginning, a promise that with shared understanding and encouragement, they could face their individual battles together. Later, sitting on the porch wrapped in blankets, they gazed at the night sky. "Look at all those stars," Jules whispered, pointing up. "It's like they are reminding us that even in the darkest times, there's always light somewhere." Ethan leaned back, soaking in the tranquil moment. "You know, I used to think the night was just scary. But now, I think it's beautiful, too. Like us." Jules turned to him, her expression brightening. "You really think so?" "Absolutely," he replied sincerely. "Together, we can make it beautiful. Just like this night." Under the stars, they sat in contemplative silence, ready to confront whatever challenges lay ahead. And in that moment, surrounded by nature's quiet grandeur, both Jules and Ethan felt the first stirrings of hope filling the spaces that once felt hollow. Hand in hand, they embraced the journey of healing, knowing they would no longer be alone. As the cool night air wrapped around them, Jules felt a warmth surge through her, fueled by Ethan's acceptance and understanding. She leaned back in her chair, allowing the serene ambience of the night to wash over her. The stars twinkled like punctuation marks in the vastness, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she glimpsed the beauty in her surroundings. "I've always loved the stars," Jules said softly. "They make me feel small but also connected to something greater. I guess that's how I want to feel in my life, like I belong somewhere." Ethan nodded thoughtfully. That sense of belonging is so important. It's easy to feel lost sometimes, especially when you're dealing with something as heavy as depression. "I can't imagine how isolating that must feel." Jules turned to him, her heart swelling with appreciation at his willingness to understand. "It is isolating. I've always felt like I was fighting my battle alone. I think part of me thought I didn't deserve to lean on anyone else." "But you do," Ethan said firmly, his eyes catching the light of the stars above. "Everyone deserves support, especially from the people who care about them. You can lean on me. I'm here for you." She smiled, her heart lighting up at his words. "Thank you, Ethan. It means more than you know." Suddenly, a chill swept through the night, and Jules shivered, pulling her blanket tighter around her shoulders. Ethan, noticing, shifted closer until their arms brushed against each other. "Are you cold?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. "Just a little," she confessed, smiling shyly. Ethan took a deep breath and, without hesitation, wrapped his arm around her shoulders. The warmth of his body flooded her with comfort, a perfect antidote to the chill of the autumn air. "Better?" he asked, looking down at her. "Much," she replied, feeling a sense of safety in his presence. "Thanks." They sat in silence for a while, the sound of leaves rustling in the breeze and the chirping of crickets providing a soothing backdrop. Jules found herself leaning against Ethan, soaking up the warmth and strength he offered. It felt natural and right. "Do you think we can do things together? Like, really together?" Jules asked suddenly, her curiosity piqued. "I mean, not just cooking and talking. Like, get out and do something fun, like hiking or exploring." Ethan's eyes brightened at the suggestion. "Absolutely. There's a really beautiful trail just a few miles away. It's easy enough for a leisurely hike, and the view at the top is stunning, especially during fall. We could make a day of it." "Sounds perfect," Jules said, her excitement bubbling to the surface. "I haven't been able to enjoy nature like that in ages." "Then it's a plan," Ethan declared, his smile infectious. "We'll pack a lunch and make a day of it. No pressure, just you, me, and the great outdoors." As they discussed their plans, the conversation began to shift back to lighter topics, favorite movies, fun childhood memories, and the oddities of their past relationships. both of them shared laughter, finding common ground in their experiences. The more they talked, the more Jules felt the weight of her worries dissipating. Eventually, Ethan glanced at his watch and said, "We should probably get some sleep. Big adventure tomorrow." "Yeah, you're right," Jules responded, reluctantly stirring from the warmth of their conversation. "I can't believe I'm actually looking forward to a hike." "Me too," Ethan said, standing up and stretching. "It's going to be amazing." Once inside the cabin, Ethan made sure the fireplace was properly extinguished before heading to his room. As he turned to say goodnight, he tripped slightly on the threshold, catching himself with a laugh. Just another day in the life of a clumsy guy. Jules chuckled. "Don't worry, you're still my favorite clumsy guy." With that, they exchanged a soft, warm smile before retreating into their rooms for the night. Jules found it difficult to fall asleep, her mind racing with all the possibilities the next day would bring. She felt lighter than she had in ages and ready to embrace the changes ahead. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The next morning came with the soft light of dawn filtering through the trees. Jules woke a little earlier than planned, her excitement bubbling to the surface. She quickly dressed and made her way to the kitchen to prepare a simple breakfast. The smell of eggs sizzling in the pan filled the cabin, and she couldn't resist the urge to make a little more for Ethan. Moments later, Ethan shuffled into the kitchen, his hair tousled and sleep still lingering in his eyes. "What smells so good?" he asked, stretching his arms. "Breakfast. I thought you might appreciate a good start to our adventure," Jules replied, turning with a smile and flipping the eggs. Ethan grinned, clearly happy to find such a warm surprise awaiting him. "You are full of wonderful surprises, aren't you?" he teased. "Just trying to return the favor for last night's dinner," she responded, her heart swelling with affection. After breakfast, they packed a small lunch, sandwiches, some fruit, and, of course, cookies for a sweet touch. Once they were ready, they hopped into Ethan's truck and set off toward the trails. The drive was filled with music, their favorite songs mingling with laughter and light-hearted banter. When they reached the trailhead, Ethan parked the truck and grabbed their gear from the back. "Ready for this?" he asked, flashing a confident smile. "Absolutely. Lead the way." Jules replied, her spirit buoyed. They began their hike, and the beauty of the forest seized Jules. The vibrant hues of orange, yellow, and red enveloped them, the ground covered in a crisp carpet of leaves that crunched underfoot. With every step, Jules felt an exhilaration that she hadn't felt in ages. It was as if the weight of her worries was lifting with each passing moment. As they climbed higher, they shared stories, teased each other about past crushes, and discussed their favorite hikes and adventures. Jules found herself laughing freely, the openness between them creating an intimate bond that deepened with every shared moment. Finally, they reached the summit, and Jules stood in awe, the view stretching out before her in a breathtaking panorama of rolling hills and changing foliage. She breathed in the fresh air, feeling an overwhelming sense of gratitude. "This is amazing," she said in awe. Ethan stood beside her, watching as her eyes lit up with wonder. "You deserve beauty like this in your life, Jules. You really do." Jules turned to him, her heart full. "Thank you for believing in me. For pushing me to step outside." "I'll always believe in you," he replied, his sincerity resonating in the air around them. "That's what friends are for, right?" With that, they sat down on a large rock, sharing the lunch they had packed. The sandwiches tasted even better in the fresh air, their laughter mixing with the whispers of the wind. As they chatted and enjoyed their meal, Jules couldn't help but feel that perhaps the deeper connection they shared was glowing like the vibrant leaves around them. After lunch, they took a moment to relish the view in comfortable silence, both reflecting on the journey they had taken. For the first time in a long while, Jules felt a sense of hope blossoming within her. Perhaps this was just the beginning of discovering not only the world outside but also the parts of herself she had shied away from for too long. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows through the trees, Jules leaned back, resting her head against Ethan's shoulder, feeling a sense of peace envelop her. "Let's promise to keep doing this," Jules said softly, her voice barely above a whisper, yet the weight of her words demanded attention. "To be there for each other, no matter what. I want to keep growing, and I want you to be a part of that." Ethan turned to her, his expression serious yet tender. "I promise, Jules. We'll figure this out together, step by step. Nothing can break the bond we're creating." Feeling the weight of his words settle within her, Jules smiled, embracing the possibilities that lay ahead. As they sat together against the backdrop of nature's majestic beauty, she knew one thing for certain: they were forging a path of healing and friendship that would illuminate their lives no matter what challenges came their way. As they sat together against the backdrop of nature's majestic beauty, a deep sense of camaraderie enveloped Jules and Ethan. The warmth radiating from Ethan beside her, coupled with the tranquil sounds of the rustling leaves and distant birdsong, created a sanctuary of peace she had long sought. "Can we do this more often?" Jules asked, breaking the comfortable silence that had settled like a soft blanket. "I mean, not just the hiking but everything. Just getting outside, being with each other, living." Ethan turned, his face lighting up at her enthusiasm. "Definitely. Maybe we can explore a different trail every weekend. There are so many beautiful places to see around here. If we plan ahead, we can make each hike an adventure." "I like that idea," Jules replied, her heart lifting at the prospect of new experiences. "Plus, it's a great way for us to keep checking in with one another, you know. I feel so much more grounded when I'm outside." Ethan nodded in agreement. "Me too. And honestly, I think it'll give us both a chance to work on our own stuff together. It's easier to talk when you're doing something like walking. I mean, the fresh air helps clear the mind." "Right." Jules smiled, her worries about tomorrow melting into the subtle rhythm of the moment. "And being honest with each other is what we both need. I'm ready to take steps, real steps." As they finished their lunch, Ethan opened the bag of cookies he'd brought along, and they shared a few while laughing about silly memories. The light-hearted banter helped Jules forget the worries that lingered in her heart, one cookie at a time. Afterward, they decided to explore a little more before heading back. They meandered along the trail, stopping occasionally to admire the scenery or take photos of the breathtaking views. As they crested a small hill, they were met with a stunning vista that drew both of their breaths away. Endless stretches of trees painted in fiery colors contrasted beautifully against the clear blue sky. "Wow, this is incredible," Ethan murmured, pulling out his phone to snap a picture. "I need to remember this moment." Jules stood beside him, capturing the scene silently in her mind, a treasured image she would carry with her. "You know," she said softly, "this is the kind of beauty I want to embrace every day. I don't want to let fear hold me back anymore." Ethan turned to her, his expression serious and encouraging. "You don't have to allow that fear to dictate your life, Jules. We have this moment right now, and it's already so much more than what we had just a week ago." "Yeah," she agreed, her voice resolute. "I'm choosing to keep moving forward. Taking steps, even if they are small." As they began to trek back down the trail, Jules felt a bubbling excitement, a mix of empowerment and friendship that spurred her on. For the first time in a long while, she was committed to not merely surviving but truly living. On their drive back to the cabin, the light began to dim, casting a warm golden hue over everything. The atmosphere was electric with possibility, and Jules found herself stealing glances at Ethan, thankful for the bond they were forming. "What about you?" she ventured after a moment of contemplation. "What are your goals? I know we've talked about my journey, but I want to be there for you too." Ethan seemed surprised by the question, his brow furrowing in thought. Honestly, I've always wanted to explore more of the outdoors. I've been stuck in a routine for so long. But aside from that, I think I want to work on being more open, like you. I've often found myself closing off, afraid to show who I really am. It's something I need to address. I think recognizing that is the first step, Jules encouraged, her heart warming at the sight of his vulnerability. It's brave to even talk about it. And I want to help you however I can. Thank you, Ethan said, his smile genuine and appreciative. It's nice to know I have someone rooting for me. And I want to support you too. When they arrived back at the cabin, the stars had begun to twinkle in the deepening twilight. They unloaded their gear and settled in for the evening, laughter and comfortable conversation filling the space. Jules felt a profound sense of gratitude that they could both be so open with one another. As night settled in, Ethan suggested a movie, and Jules eagerly agreed. They cozied up on the couch with blankets and popcorn, enjoying the simple pleasure of sharing a story. Between jokes and playful teasing about the movie's plotlines, it felt as if they were building a fortress of friendship around them, a sanctuary where they could be their true selves without fear of judgment. After the movie ended and the credits rolled, Ethan stretched and yawned. That was fun. I really needed a night like this. Me too, Jules replied, her heart lighter than it had been in months. Just being here, at home together, it means a lot. Ethan glanced at her, something shifting in the air around them. Jules, I know this is still early in our journey, but I feel like we've made such great strides together. I want us to keep pushing each other, to grow, explore, and not just become better friends but better people. Jules felt a warm flush wash over her. I couldn't agree more. It's just, I really appreciate the way you see me, Ethan. I don't feel judged, just understood. Their eyes locked, and in that electric moment of connection, Jules realized something profound was happening between them. It was more than just friendship, it was an intertwining of their lives, something beautiful and raw. Let's take on the world together, Ethan said, his voice low and sincere. I'm here for you, always. Always, she echoed, her heart racing. In the quiet stillness of the cabin, with stars twinkling just outside, Jules felt a wave of emotions wash over her, hope, warmth, love. She had taken steps into the light, and with Ethan by her side, she felt prepared to keep stepping forward into whatever the future had in store. Fingers brushing lightly, they both knew this journey had just begun, and together, they were ready to embrace not just the challenges but all the wonders that awaited them on the horizon.